Hey everyone, and welcome to the midweek review. So we'll be looking at the overall market as a whole and where it could potentially go for the rest of the week. We will start here with the ES futures. And we can see that now we've transitioned out of that nice bullish run into a downtrend. We have no more stacked EMAs, and we are in a deceleration stage as well. So this is definitely showing me that the market has now come into a more bearish territory. We can see that we've broke below that 21, and now we've rejected it once, twice, and now a third time. So every time we revert back to this 21, we usually fall down to the -3 or the -2 ATR level. And I think that is something that will happen here once again on the ES. So we came up to this 21. We've now rejected it. We got a little bounce here to that 8 EMA today, but I think that we do get a continuation in selling off here on the overall market as a whole, just because the trend is your friend until it is not, and this is what our trend has been showing us now for these last few times. And then another thing to look at here is we do have this daily squeeze setting up with the histogram below 0, and I do think that this will start to roll over, and we could have this start to fire to the downside, and this could push us back down to these previous lows or even break below those lows and start making lower lows on the overall market as a whole. One thing to also watch here, if we look at the weekly, we do have a new low compression squeeze starting to form here. We are still holding this 21 EMA though on this weekly time frame, so definitely something to watch. We keep getting these flushes below it, but it keeps regaining that level. Once we do get our first close below that level on the weekly time frame, that's when I think we could see a flush down to that -1 or even that -2 ATR on the weekly time frame. So definitely something to keep watching and how this week can close out. And now going on to the Qs. The Qs had a nice little push here today, but just as the ES, it's in a very similar state. So we have our deceleration stage, no stacked EMAs, and it keeps rejecting that 21. So you get a rejection of the 21, you get a rejection of the 21, and we get a rejection of the 21. So this one is a very similar to the ES. We are starting to form a new daily squeeze in this one, but I also think that it could keep selling off here to go retest those previous lows, which aligns perfectly with that -2 ATR, which is a good place to have stocks start to revert back up to that mean. So definitely an area to watch is that previous low here on the Qs and also that 21 EMA if we do revert back up here and then fall again. So the next one here is the Dow. And the Dow is actually rejecting this 50 period moving average very well. So you can see we had the fall below it, came down to this -3 ATR, reverted back up to it, got some closes actually above the 21. So now its resistance is that 50 period moving average. Came up, touched it, rejected it, fell back down to -2, came back up, rejected it, came back up again, and it rejected it one more time. So we're closing below the 21 EMA 3 days in a row now. The squeeze is looking bullish here, but I am waiting for, if not tomorrow, this to start turning dark blue and having the squeeze roll over and fire to the downside where it should retest those lows just on the structure, and what it's looking like doesn't mean it has to, but that's what I can see from the Dow at the moment. So last but not least, if we look here at the Russell, this one is definitely the most different indice compared to all the rest of them. We have been in a complete chop fest here for months now. We have this top resistance, and then we have this lower support that it keeps bouncing in between and off of. But now these last few weeks here, it's been just holding that 21 EMA super tight to it, not really even testing these +1 and -1 ATR regions. We do have this daily squeeze setting up here with that bullish momentum pushing to the upside. We did get a close above the 21 EMA today, so this one definitely does look better to potentially fire to the upside. Doesn't mean it has to due to the overall market not looking the best. We also do not have stacked EMAs on this one, so looking for it to go to the upside is more of a stretch where it's going against the overall market's trend, but this one could definitely maybe get a little more buying into it. And then also another thing to look at with this one is its weekly chart. So this one has been in a weekly squeeze for a very long time. It's been sitting in between -1 and +1 ATR. In these last few weeks, it has been, look at these candles, they're just nothing, just sitting right at that 21. We do have one yellow histogram bar, but it's still below the 0. I would ideally like to see this get above that 0 line for me to actually start to look long on it. But definitely something to keep your eye on is this weekly squeeze, because when it does fire, that will give this one a lot of power either to that upside or to that downside. So those are the overall markets there, and now I want to take a look at a few different sectors, some that are looking very solid and holding up despite the market selling off, and some that are looking good to actually short at these levels. So the first ones I'm going to go over are the short ones due to the market looking more bearish in my opinion. The first one's going to be XLI. So if we see here, we had this great flush down to -3, bounced up to the 21, flushed again, and now we're bouncing back up to this 21. So we have this daily squeeze setting up. Yes, we are above that 0 line, but due to its structure, not having any stacked DMAs and trading below that 21, I do think that squeeze starts to roll over, and this one could fire again to that downside, retesting these lows once again. So definitely looking at this sector to short in the upcoming days here, and I think that if we can get another push up to about this 140, that would be a great place to then enter a trade short on this one. The next one I'm looking to short is XLP. So a similar story here. You get that flush. This one only reverted to the 8 EMA before flushing again, and then it finally got its reversion back to that 21, and it's kind of been sitting between the 21 and this 8 EMA, kind of being kind of stagnant, I think just due to the fact that it's starting to form another squeeze. I think this one you have to give a little more time to due to the fact that its squeeze hasn't fully developed yet, so to give this one maybe into even next week, but it is at a great buying place to go short on this one, because I think that this squeeze will also eventually start to roll over with the overall market looking like wanting to roll over. So keep this one on your watch list as well, and stocks within the sector to go short on. But now there are a few sectors that are actually holding up very well compared to the rest of the market, and you could potentially look for a long plays within those sectors. So the first one is XLE. So XLE had this daily squeeze fired to that upside, and it made a great move. Kept hugging in between this 8 EMA and this +3 ATR levels. I'm just kind of waiting now for this one to get a reversion back down to this 21 EMA before getting on a long entry in it. I just like its structure a lot compared to the rest of the market, and money's always got to be flowing into somewhere, and it is flowing into the energy sector at the moment. So just going to be patient with this one and wait for that reversion to the mean before actually looking long on this one, but definitely a sector that is very bullish and very strong compared to the rest. And then the last one that I actually like to the long side is XLY. So this one's structure is holding up just beautifully. We have a nice daily squeeze setting up. We're almost above this 0 line on the histogram. And we're trading above the 21, and we have stacked DMAs. So everything about this one is leading me to believe that this should hopefully fire to that upside and then maybe test this +2 ATR region. Some of the stocks within this one that I actually like especially are Home Depot. You have a great daily squeeze here, stacked DMAs, trading above that 21. Look for a reversion back to this level before entering it, but it does look solid. And then the other one in that sector I do like a lot actually is Lowe's. This one is a little extended, so if you can get a reversion back to this 8 EMA, I believe that would be a great entry for this one because its squeeze, it does look like it is wanting to fire to that long side. So those are the sectors that I like short and long. And that is the midweek review. Hopefully, it gives you all a better understanding of where the market could potentially go and what you should be watching out for. So, hopefully, you all have a great rest of your week trading, and hopefully, you're making money. Have a good one, everyone.